Pessoal, vamos retomando aqui os nossos lugares, tá bem? Cada um aí voltando, para darmos
If you may
início
please be seated
do horário de encerramento.
so we can continue due to the strength of time.
Tem aviso.
And we have
Importante, olha.
we have something to say.
Pessoal, nós temos
We have
nós temos aqui do coffee break
from the coffee break
ficaram alguns sanduíches.
some
Se
sandwiches.
alguém quiser fazer almocinho mais leve,
So if somebody wants to have a light lunch, eat a sandwich or something like that,
pode ficar ali em cima e quem quiser
we can put it up there. And if you want to eat,
a gente vai descer aqui para baixo.
instead of eating lunch, we're gonna go eat lunch afterwards.
E aí então nós vamos ter após o encerramento desse painel, nós vamos ter
And after finishing this panel, we are going to have
comer os sanduíches e tudo,
lunch.
ou comer aqui na região e voltar às 2, tá bem?
We can come back at 2
dos nossos painéis. Nós temos 2 painéis
for the continuity of our panels.
Todos estão convidados a permanecer. Teremos coffee break à tarde também, né?
We're going to have a coffee break in the afternoon as well.
Nesse programa o almoço, mas os coffee breaks estão incluídos, tá bom?
Coffee breaks are included. Lunch is not included today, but coffee break is included.
Bem-vindos de volta. Agora a gente vai dar andamento aqui.
Welcome. Welcome back. We are going to continue with our panel, and I will pass the floor to the priest Ricardo Castro from the Catholic University of the Amazon. Good morning. I would like to salute myself for the possibility of being here sharing on this panel, this exchange of knowledge, especially in the religious field. I am from Paritins. I was born on the other side of the city, so I'm a member of the Caprichoso team. But my parents are from the rural area. I've lived for a long time, up to 10 years of age, in the countryside of Paritins. And then I went to the city until I reached Manaus. I'm graduated from philosophy at our federal university. Then I was part of a religious congregation. I did theology and science of religion in London and in Belgium. I lived in Africa for 10 years in Mozambique. Then I returned to Brazil. I got my PhD in theology on these aspects of theology and ecology. Part of the reflection I'm proposing you is to have a study elaborating some articles having the theology of religions and the ecology. Some aspects that we are here is this relation of axiology and cosmology. And I want to talk about a reflection of the deep Amazon ecology, always related to religion. When we face ourselves with the observation of Clifford Gates, that the sacred symbols work to synthesize the ethos of people, the character and the quality of its life, its style and moral humor and static, and its vision of the world and the image it has, the ways things are on its pure reality, its ideas. This led to the definition of religions as systems of symbols, and I want to use its definition as a trampoline for a comprehension of a cognitive side of a religion. This could be called a theology, and to be more inclusive, a more integrated view of life, being religious or non-religious. On this approach, the conceptions of the order of the existence are connected with appreciation of reality and the norms of our behavior. Talking about the world as a creation of God has a prescriptive and descriptive aspect. And on the same article, Goethe is talking about the models of the world and models of the world. Models that can be descriptive and that might seem from a normative and a transformative ambition. As a way to acknowledge the concentration of those dissonances, I will talk about not only about a religion, but about a theology of our religious or non-religious view. Typical of theologies and non-religious views with systematic positions, it seems they offer a particular point of view of how the world is and how the world should be, of the truth, the ideal, the real. Each theology is a particular relationship of a cosmology with a view of the way reality is fundamentally, and we could call it a metaphysic or ontology. And we have a view of the values that should be done as axiology. This is an articulation reflected on our moral intuitions. A typical example is that this God created this world is a cosmological affirmation. So we need to be good administrators. Note that cosmology doesn't refer to astrophysics, but in a philosophical discipline. And to clarify and explore, we have a formula to comprehend the nature of theologies, views that are religious or non-religious of life, a theology that may be synthesized with a cosmology and an axiology. This is not just an addition, it's a crucial part, how both are reunited. This is for a theory of values. It's a articulation that is reflected in our moral intuitions. I talk about theologies in plural to indicate that we are not referring to a single discipline, not to a single view, but this heuristic formula is to provide opportunity to comprehend multiple theologies that people have as visions of God, humanity, the world, where the aspects of moral and intellectual are interconnected. Now talking a little bit more about theology related to the Amazon, related to what we call eco-theology, and an aspect that we are developing with RIPAM Brazil, being discussed at Amazonizar network, and that we discuss many times in our meetings. Theology is a net, is an intersection where words, images, schemes, rituals, bodies, cultures will meet and exchange. Those patterns inspire, and some will expire as well. In this context, we want to articulate an eco-theology of the Amazon. The articulations of faith and theology will happen in our trials to make sense of our faith regarding the challenges we face in our life and our epistemology. Will determine the policies of our theologies and ministries. The anguish of the earth is a great preoccupation, but our problematizations, our axiomas, the reflections, the ministries, the eco-theological ministries that are dominant, the contemporary, will lead to issues that are fundamental, that will lead to involvement, that are critical. The challenge of this is to generate a space and to elevate the voices so the underdogs can speak, dialoguing with the traditional knowledge of Amazon, with the Christian tradition, decolonizing theology. Theology in this perspective cannot be understood as a finished product. And this is something that the subaltern lives and reflects. It's a dialogue of who is speaking and who is listening. The movement of eco-theology is inserted in epistemologies that are colonial and neoliberal. The deep ecology, the eco-theology needs to make people humane. This is a vocation that is spiritual and political for everybody that wants to flourish earth and earthlings. On this vocation, we need to go back into the indigenous communities and to the traditions of earth while they make an effort to decolonize itself and their common beings. Reverence, love, affection, with fear, frustration, and the respect are marking the human beings' actions for a long time. On the last couple of years, the ethical and religious attitude of valuing nature for itself and seeing it as divine or spiritually vital can be called eco-theology, deep Amazon eco-theology. The objective of this reflection is the interculturing of the deep contemporary Amazon eco-theology and the traditions, indigenous traditions of Amazon. The interculturality proposes a transformation of the deep, not just a change of habits. Interculturality of ecology is not just fomenting caring for nature. We need to rediscover aspects, binding aspects, and its creatures. We need to rediscover our belonging, being part, being interconnected on the big chains of life. The interculturality of life needs to go beyond the technological aspect, digging our most deep roots with knowledge, more than scientific knowledge, to promote companionship, equality, pleasure, and that we can cure Earth and ourselves. The simple reason where we need a new name for our humane attitude that may have dozens of millions of years is the stories of the Anthropocene, changing our relationship with the vital local Amazon. The deep Amazon eco-theology comes with an answer to what we are doing to the Amazon biome. In a certain sense, the Amazon nature is changing. We are affecting cycles of lives and affecting systems that are interdependent of rivers, forests, indigenous peoples. We are extinguishing species at a pace that has never been met in dozens of thousands of years, putting an end of this kingdom that was up to now autonomous. At every breath, build of our living and collecting fruits from the earth will amend nature, but the effects of what we have been done on the last century are monumentally bigger than anything that we may have dreamed before. Even if we think nature includes human beings, with a part of nature, us, are in a process of extinction. The effects of this destruction of Earth have a great impact of our contribution in human living. We cannot have humanity without Earth, but Earth won't be satisfied with those small gifts. It demands respect for its limits, caring for its sustainability, and understanding that we are more than just children of Mother Earth, but we are Earth, an Earth that is living, breathing, must be worshipped and cared for. It doesn't need us, we need it. It might not want us anymore, but it will keep spinning. And without us, it's going to be spinning without us because we are ecocides and genocides. It is a long text. I'm going towards the end. All the religious rituals are charged with basic elements: bread, wine, incensing, smoking, baths, fire, and others. Meditations and dances will emphasize our joy, centrality, and interdependence with the cosmos, signed as a way of living and transcendence. We can celebrate ourselves among devastation, and we can have a sort of sin by our ecological actions. The rituals are essential for a spiritual life that seeks to be more than just an experience. Spiritual imagination and creativity are needed to keep us helping finding ways that are meaningful and that allow us a connection with the spirits of the cosmos, creation, and creatures. Religious traditions must see the way the ecological crisis amends certain basic concepts of the world that is surrounding us, considered as a creation of the god or goddess. Nature, in the form of ecosystems of this biological development of Earth, is now undergoing the intervention of human beings, the amendments of biosphere, and the power of destructive technology. God cannot intimidate human actions anymore, but when we hunt animals and fish up to its extinction, we are getting distant of transcendent aspects of life and becoming extremely materialistic. The creation of God and forces of nature are not just an indication of the human finitude. We can be blamed of being insensible of how we use our powers, and we have destructive powers. This is part of the deep ecology. We are trying to do this is not open manner due to the environmental crisis. Our religious practice and our spirituality can flourish in a nearby future. Our meetings and sharings are trying to acknowledge and cure our spirits and practices on earth. This is a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. We would like to spend hours and hours to hearing everybody who's saying something here. We have other people to talk. Now I'm gonna give the floor to Bispo Renato Souza. Good morning, everyone. It's hard to talk about after um, many contributions, but let's do it. I am Renato Souza. I am a bishop from these people that we have here in north of Brazil, and I am currently the vice coordinator of the Amazonizar, along with Reverendo Yuri. I am a teacher in state colors. Now I work with the media center in Amazonas, Semian, and I have a major in philosophy, religious science, and Christian theology, and Christology. And I'm also integrative therapist. I handle therapists with flowers of thought and also the Reiki energy. Our small and young community, the Fraternity Friends of Gospel, has only 2 years old. We are in Guajará-Mirim, in the state of Rondônia, and we are also in Santarém, in the state of Pará, besides our community here in Manaus. So our small community is committed with the several questions that has been controversy in the Brazilian society, and above all in the Christian community, because we embrace people who at first don't feel included anymore or are excluded from Christian system. People who have married a second time, people who are part of the LGBTQA plus community, people who were already disconnected from their faith community, the people who are called by the people who are not attending church. And we have been talking with these people, embracing them. And when our community were 10 years old, we had really interesting groups, indigenous peoples, immigrants, transgender people who celebrated the 10 years of our community. For these groups, our community was born. Our community presents them the possibility of keeping them their Christian practices being as they are, without having heavy dogmas and making them not to characterize as Christ created them. They can be Christian, but this is extremely attacked by other Christian groups, but people stone Jesus, let alone me, and we move forward. We also try to treasure and ponder and empower women, giving them the possibility to be leaders in high positions. They can be priestesses, is not something new. Our Anglican brothers and sisters, they have been doing in Brazil for over 30 years now. They ordain women. And we try to be present and talk with social movements, with controversial topics where many times the representatives of Christian churches are hostile, but we're there trying to be present and telling them that we can have a different vision from the traditional and help them conquer their space in society. This made us have some chairs in social movements where I have a dialogue with leadership from social movement. It's a really interesting. In the environmental field, our work happens with the Amazonizar Network. Our community is a founding member. And the first steps of the Amazonizar Network was in our space where we were celebrating our wreaths, but Reverend Yuri will talk more about this later on. In this field, we have been acting in a promotion and visibility of communities for original peoples and people who live by the rivers. And during the pandemics, we had our first great experience when we were able to organize with the limited resources we had and assist communities, indigenous communities with masks and products so that they could get protected from the COVID, and in the promotion of an eco spirituality, the insistence in our celebrations that we set aside the traditional formats and include more elements of the Amazon in our adoration. And this empowering of indigenous and Amazonian women and the fight against uh, religious community. I want to highlight the women that last November we gave them the title of godmothers of our church, because when we didn't have a space and we still don't have a space in our community, we don't have a temple, a sacred place, they give their sacred space, the place they keep in headquarters, they give to us so that we can have our religious services. And many times they assisted us, not letting us, allowing us to celebrate our services. They were singing with maracay and their joy, and we give them this honorific title. They are part of the story of our community, right? For securing us. When we Christians don't have one of the things that, just like the indigenous people, that is sacred, which is a place, a sacred territory, they kindly give it to us, and we are grateful for her, for them. And as a suggestion that we can present to the G20, and Father Ricardo has already mentioned, but this movement of revisiting our theologies, all the religions here present, we have theologists, scholars, we should revisit this theology and open ways, open the doors for this interreligious dialogue, trying to have beyond the reflections that are characteristic of every tradition, to extend bridges for similar traditions or even different traditions than ours, so that we can present to the world and to the G20 itself a theological reflection that is common among the different religions. Our theologists are really busy, but we're going to give them some more work because there is this urgency, and it's extremely important. All the religious traditions that are here, they believe that there were a creation, a divinity, or a set of divinities started creating everything there is. So we gotta go from there so that we can show the only speech to the biggest economies in the world and tell them, well, you who are the state governors, you either had or have a religion. So these religions are here telling you, take care of the creation that God or Goddess or the Great Spirits gave us to take care. Starts it starts from you. Then we should promote a dialogue, and we had about academy and the ancestral knowledges many times, because this riverside communities, we have temples and churches that are opened like once a week. The rest of the week, it's totally idle, right? Sometimes it's open in the night for religious service or something. It would be a space where we could develop workshops and have the proximity of these two natures of knowledge. The scientific scholar, the traditional knowledge could be combined and orient those people. Not that they don't know, they know better than us, but unite these knowledges so we could monitor in the most effective way. And when we have the climate change, we have a monitoring and have an agreement using that space, turning it in a type of lab, analyzing the quality of rivers, of the soil inside Amazon, inside Pantanal, and observe from there what are the impacts of the climate change and the intervention of the human beings in that place. It would be really something important because it would be good to observe and produce data so that government can act in defending the environment. In these same spaces, in this promotion of courses, sustainable education, bringing suggestions to the community so that can be more and more sustainable, right? Especially during this period that Father Roberto mentioned, we are the door to a drought that will be worse than the one that was in our um, state last year, and declaring using the sacred spaces and bringing to these communities the possibility to work around this situation and the difficulties that the drought will bring this year. And lastly, maybe it was Don Utsu who mentioned to reactivate the committees or even creating an interreligious committee, adding all the suggestions that I gave previously. It would be a permanent committee to observe and follow up these changes, but promoted by the religions with support of the governments so that we have the necessary data to act in effective way before the climate changes and the situations just like things happened in the south and things happen from time to time in our region. Thank you, Salete. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Bishop Renato. Your collaborations were really important. Let's just give the floor to Sister Elise. Um,
Então, bom dia, com muita alegria, muita responsabilidade, muito compromisso também que compartilham dessa mesa.
Good morning. I'm happy to be in this conversation. I greet all the maids who are present, the women here. And here I'm gonna tell you where I come from. I come from an ancestral territory that was colonized. I am from Manaus, Amazonas, but my ancestors, especially on my father's side, is from the Mura in the municipality of Taquatiara. I am daughter of the Mura people. I have a major in pedagogy. I have a specialization in orientation. I have a master's degree in anthropology by the Federal University of the Rio Grande do Sul. Now I work in Manaus that came up from a process that we started building. I am part of the REPAN community, and I also coordinate a project of the Amazonian House of Francis Clara that was born from the calling of Pope Francis, who called us to give soul to the economy. So the houses of Francis Clara, they come up as an answer to the calling of Pope Francis in the Brazilian community. I am in Brazilian organization and national secretariat. So my speech comes from what the people from the outskirts share. I am from the Zumbi dos Palmares neighborhood. If you know how this neighborhood was born with a lot of fight. It's an occupation, and one of the main leaders is my mother. My mother's daughter of Parintins. She's fan of the Caprichoso um, bull. We inherited that from my mother. From this organization, from the outskirts, we built this popular project, this project that is linked to the solidarity economy. I'm going to start talking a little about the economy of Francis Clara Salete was part of the national articulation. She's familiar with our steps that we gave until we consolidated as articulation because we understand our work as an articulation because it mobilizes networks, projects. We work with social movements, with universities. From the territory we are inserted. The Francis Clara community is inspired in the São Francisco de Assis and Santa Clara visions and promote an economical vision centered in solidarity and social justice. It comes from the calling of Pope Francis that surpasses the walls of the Catholic Church in this interreligious faith, but also suggests for youths that don't are not part in any religious system, how we can do things against this capitalist system that is killing us. Everything that we have been talking until now about the fragility that we live with these climate issues and then the invasion of our territories is because of this system that is predatory. So the economy of Francis Clara is against this system and is trying to offer an alternative that provides the well-being of all the peoples in our Mother Earth. In this sense, the interreligious dialogue has a role that is essential in this approach to promote the collaboration among different religious organizations to fight against the contemporary challenges. St. Francis and Saint Clara are fundamental saints, and they are acknowledged by their simplicity and love for the creation. That's why the Pope Francis called us to go back to this and have an experience of an ecological environment. And the economy of Francis Clara, they have a document that is written by Pope Francis that makes us think clearly about our reality to defend our common house. And he invites us, and we go back to that vision before the cross of Saint Damien. Go there and reconstruct my house, which is in ruins. And we leave that from the fragilities that this system has caused us. Saint Francis and Saint Clara had a profound respect for the environment and they had values that were against capitalism and this is characteristic of many modern economies. The St. Clair economy suggests a reevaluation of economical values, incentivizing practices that promotes the care with the people in need, with the indigenous people, traditional peoples, and people from the outskirts, and the preservation of the environment. Well, the Francis Clara economy are based on these principles, promoting a developing model that puts the human needs and the environmental issues in the center. And the interreligious dialogue in this context is of the essence to create a common ground, regardless of what religions, and they can share their perspectives And the collaboration among these traditions may enrich the economy of Francis Clara, bringing practical and sustainable solutions that reflect common preoccupation with the human well-being and the planetary well-being. Besides that, the interreligious dialogue can foster greater comprehension and mutual respect, promoting peace in a world that is frequently divided by religious and cultural differences. By uniting voices of different uh, perspectives, the Francis Clara economy is more inclusive and more robust in its answers to the global challenges before the economical context, especially what has been affecting us the most, which is the economical inequality and the environmental collapse that has already been mentioned here. In summa, the Francis Clara economy, fed by the interreligious dialogue, represents a transformative thing that considers religious and cultural and ethic values. When promoting sustainability and equality, it has a potential to create a more fair and balanced society where the economical development is integrated by the respect for the human dignity in our common house that is in ruins. Inside of that are principles and values for our proposal has the environmental sustainability, which is incentivate economical practices that will preserve and protect the environment for current and future generations. And a second question is the social justice that is trying to promote equity, mitigate social inequalities, and make sure everybody has resources for a worthy life. And third is solidarity and cooperation by fostering mutual collaboration instead of competition. And I've added some questions here so that we can think about them. We have been mentioning them, but this is the role of the interreligious dialogue. It's fundamental for the building and strengthening of the Franciscan economy because it allows the integration of several perspectives and practices that enrich this approach. Many religious traditions share values that are aligned with the principles of this economy, like charity, compassion, moderation, and justice. The benefits we may have before this religious dialogue are the diversity of perspective, the integration of different religious perspectives, um, a bigger range of solutions, the strengthening of ethics values because the interreligious dialogues reinforce the ethical and moral values that are the base of the Franciscan economy, and the promotion of peace and cooperation. Collaboration among different religions can promote peace and cooperation in a global level, surpassing culture and religion divisions. The Francis Clara economy, nourished by the interreligious dialogue, wants to realign economical systems with cultural and religious and ethical values. When we have a fair practice from several religions, this approach has the potential to create a more fair, balanced and harmonized community. The interreligious dialogue does not only enhance our economical proposal, but strengthens the bonds of cooperation among global communities by contributing to a more pacific and sustainable world. In this sense, we promote from all the proposal of the Francis Clara economy, we have the Casa Amazônica of Francis Clara, who have been this space of strengthening of the women in the outskirts, especially women from the outskirts. And they find in that space a network of strengthening to share their knowledges they bring. And I reinforce here what Bispo Renato was saying, that how important it is for us to share these knowledge from indigenous people, traditional people, and also the women from the outskirts and the people from the outskirts that go beyond the academic seats. So I see that it's a need for us to work on this quilt and exchange information for those who are in the universities, but those who are also in the outskirts, because we have great social movements that came from the outskirts based on the needs of those people. And this space is also a reconnection. Many of us were born in the cities. We were ripped out of from our roots because of the depredation of our territory. I'm a consequence of the colonial project. So offering um, space for ecological spirituality is also a way to reconnect ourselves with our ancestors, especially us who are born in the outskirts, reconnecting with our peoples, our origins, and our house is important. And I see that important inside the Amazonian house of Francis Clara with this reconnection with the ancestral. May us offer these spaces and make ourselves stronger so that other projects can be born from the strength of the outskirts and the traditional communities. Thank you for the opportunity to be part and to be a panelist here. Thank you, my Lizzie. Hooray to Francisco Jesse. Now I give the word to the pastor who's from the church of the community.
A todas e todos presentes. Um imenso prazer poder estar aqui junto
Good morning to everyone here. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you
onde a gente se
in this space where we dedicate to reflect, to think,
compartilhar
to share our experiences as communities
meio ambiente da
in defending
Meu nome é
the environment and our common house.
sou aqui de Manaus.
My name is Leandro Forte. I'm born and raised in Manaus, part of this amazing Amazon rainforest. I am representing the Metropolitan Church as a pastoral leadership in the intention group in Manaus.
Coordenação
I also represent the state coordination of the Workers' Party in the Amazon, in the person of our friend Raimundo.
represento aqui a
And I also represent the Center of Popular Movements. I am as a general coordinator, and I represent the state coordinator as well.
faço teologia daqui
I studied theology
religiosas. Acho que eu sou o menos
from all of our religious beings. I am still undergoing school. I'm fairly new to this, working with the movements. I work with the LGBT.
aqui na plateia me acompanhando e não é
My friends are here following me.
nós.
It's not new to any of us.
Mundo em si, o planeta,
The world, the planet,
todos esses problemas, todos esses
we are facing all these
que têm
problems, these situations that have shown those signals to the environment.
tem causado impacto cada vez mais evidente
We have an impact that is evident,
e elas têm se manifestado nesses
and they have been manifested on this
visto recentemente
extreme climate events that we are seeing, and we have seen in the Amazon during the drought, on the south with the floods.
de calor no Brasil
We are seeing with the heat islands in Brazil,
com o degelo das calotas
with
e todos esses são
the
sinais que mostram que
polar ice melting, and this is the sign
de mundo sem a humanidade
to show that we are very close to being a world without humanity. If we want to continue inhabiting this world
e vivendo nele como nossa casa, nós
and to be living with it as our home, we need to take extreme measure.
casa comum, mas também
We need to be human beings living in this home, but as people being in a community of faith that understand this as a power that created this world and nature and animals and the planet and everything coordinated, interconnected, where one depends on the other to live, and we depend on this planet to live. And on this reality that we live on our daily basis, we need to face this as a concern and a responsibility. On the Christian traditions, the Bible is rich to show us those teachings that highlight the importance of preservation and our responsibility as creators, as people who take care of the divine creation. We care and we trust the human being for the caring and protection of earth until the passages that talk about all creatures for the love of God, people who have a vocation to care for all things. The writings, they invite us to contemplate this intrinsic value of the creation of God and to act through it, defending the dignity of everything that God has made, because nothing is impure or disposable. And I can talk about my own personal experience as a person that lives the word since very young. I've lived my childhood, my youth in those neo-Pentecostal faith communities, but they were very fundamentalists. I have always lived the gospel, and I felt this idea that us as Christians, we are out of this planet because and if God is going to come back, if Jesus is going to come back, why do I have to worry? Why do I have to worry? This idea was imputed in my head, but also in the head of the people that I lived in this faith community. These communities are disseminated on those churches, on those temples, where consumption is very strong. And for this to be material to be consumed, we need to consume what nature is offering us, where we need ore to produce our smartphones, our televisions. We need to mine for ore. When we need to produce food to feed, and we don't use this food. We know that Brazil is one of the biggest producers of soy, but they don't use it. It's exported. Not just soy, but all the grains that Brazil is producing. And we are going hungry daily. And our production is being sold to outside of the country. We need to bring these livings of our life to these discussions. As Sister Elise said, the periphery communities, the Ribeirinho communities, the communities that are needed much more than the city. And they have more access to the communities, and we need to make ideal those actions and to put them into practice. We need to get these people out of those problems. They bring trouble to the world. As a faith community, we have this vital role and together, not just as Christians, and for other beings as well as manifestations of faith, we can be and we are this force for the good. We promote this environmental consciousness. We support sustainable initiatives, and we defend public policies to protect our nature, to protect our common home. We need to provide incentives to our faith communities and on the environmental communities as well. We need environmental teachings on our worship places. We need to provide lectures, not just academic studies, but Bible studies as well. We need to integrate this concern of the environment in our liturgy and celebrations. Caring for the creation is part of our faith as well. And I can put this as an example. The ICM, the community where I'm a part, we have in our faith declaration a part talking about the defense of the environment. We affirm to the humankind our mission of caring for the earth, the air. We will resist to the systems and structures that are destroying the creation of God. Although we have this declaration, our church is still ongoing on these issues for the environment and the caring for the creation. And a lot of those ideas of the environment we have grown in this our community because I've been tough to the ICM. Since I started being part of the ICM, I had never heard of environments at church. I had never heard of the defense of nature in a song, during worship, in an activity. So I brought this reflection to the community. Why do we have that in our faith declaration and we do not put that into practice? So, since I started questioning the situations, in all of our trips, we are banning all plastic consumption. They take their own cups, their own plates. It's simple, it's basic. We need, as members of society, those are contributions we can take so others can take this as an example and do it. And just to wrap it up, I want to pose some questions for us to do. On Psalms 104, we express gratitude to God, showing its image for the creator and sustainer of the environment. So how can we express our gratitude of God in the abundance of the creator? How can we put this into practice to the well-being for that? In Genesis chapter 2, God entrusts us to care for his garden. What is our individual responsibility when caring for God? We need to apply those principles. On Romans chapter 8, we read that the creation is waiting for redemption. Could we care for our sisters and brothers without caring for the planet? We need to be those agents of renewal and caring for the environment, working for restoration and promoting sustainability. We have to be reminded that change starts with small individual actions and will amplify when we share those small changes in our communities. Thank you.
Muito obrigada, Leandro.
Thank you, Leandro.
A Clarice Tucano, coordenadora da
I
Associação
call Clarice Tucano, the coordinator of Women Indigenous of Rio Negro. She is coming. We have a chair for her.
Enquanto a nossa querida Clarice Tucano chega aqui, vou lembrar que
While our
mais ou menos
Clarice is coming,
então,
we have time as our enemy,
a gente nos
or what we do.
pouquinho para ainda tem outras colaborações e também a gente quer abrir para o público.
We have other collaborations we want to open to public as well.
Bem-vinda, Clarice.
Welcome, Clarice.
Bom dia mais uma vez.
Welcome, everyone.
Eu acatei uma ação. Canhoete. Canhanapa. Obrigada pelo convite.
Thank you for the invitation.
Essa mesa com os líderes
Thank you for being on this table with the religious leaders and members of civil society. And
Eu acredito o tempo nos aperta.
thanking them. Time is a constraint. It's pushing us as well. It's bringing us something that we just said.
O meio ambiente nos chama a atenção.
Environment gets our attention
Para nossa
through our existence and resistance.
sou filha de benzedor.
I'm a daughter of a blesser of the Tucano Indigenous people and Balida from the Tarian people.
Com a língua
My name,
me chama
through the ancestral
que significa
language,
mulher
means
sentada
woman
entrada da
seated
casa de festa.
on the door of the big party house, Maloca,
Cerimoniais que chamamos de
to greet all the comers of the ceremony.
dança, me
In
colocaram
Portuguese, they put me the name of Clarice,
e sou chamada Clarice Tucano por onde eu for.
and I am Clarice Tucano where I go.
A liderança da Associação
I am the leadership,
do Rio Negro em
I'm
Manaus.
part of the leadership of Indigenous Women of Alto do Rio Negro in Manaus.
Eu quero aplausos para
And
mulheres
please, a round of applause to the women that came here dance
que são dessa associação.
and are part of this association.
Sou artesã indígena, sou
I make arts.
graduada
I'm
em
a
pedagogia,
professor, graduated in pedagogy, specialized in project management, and professor of the UEA in Amazon. I'm a master in social studies for migration and social movement in the Amazon in the Federal University of Amazon.
foi a minha defesa da dissertação, então sou bem
It was where I defended my dissertation. Very recent.
ainda, né?
I'm still
Então,
starting.
o que me chama a atenção
What's getting my attention
representar de grupo, de coletivo de mulheres
and what represents this group, this collection of women posing with the theme of environment, climate change, and the contribution of religious traditions.
eu não queria vocês se sentirem escandalizados
I don't want to scandalize you,
e injustiçados.
and I don't want to make any injustice of you.
Onde as mulheres indígenas se
This is the place where indigenous women are being put with their place to speak, what they're thinking, what they are living on their daily lives.
Então eu queria trazer aqui
I want to bring a little bit
séculos
of something that for many centuries
grandes religiões do mundo
we had many religions of the world helping promote
em
war
nome do divino.
in the name of the sacred,
Para exterminar
to
a humanidade
remove humanity
sem compreender
without comprehending
humano é parte da
that
natureza.
humans are part of nature.
Ser humano ocidental é partícula
The Western
que é
human
mais
beings
agressivo.
they think they are part of nature. They have been the most aggressive and they're being more aggressive. They run over the biodiversity that composes nature.
Que bom,
Good.
estamos aqui reunidos para a discussão
We are here
dessa temática
gathered,
sensível que envolve a todos nós.
and this involves all of us.
Para a maioria das religiões, o inferno, o purgatório,
For the majority of religions,
que é
hell, purgatory, heaven,
as
paradise,
almas passeiam nas nuvens.
the souls walk through
E para
clouds.
nós, povos originários,
And for us, originary
esses
people,
elementos
those elements
estão no chão,
are on the ground.
porque depois da morte,
Because after death,
nós tornamos adubo fértil. Para
after
nascer
death,
uma árvore frondosa
we are going to be maneuver for
na
trees.
natureza. Por
Our
isso,
life will
nós
continue inside
Por
nature.
isso, nós reverenciamos a Mãe
We
Natureza.
reverence Mother Earth.
Espiritualmente, voltamos para nossas
Spiritually,
famílias
we
ancestrais.
go back to our ancestral homes.
A natureza para nós é tudo.
Nature for us is
Está
everything.
nela.
Sacred is
A religião
there.
ocidental
Western
contaminou
religions have contaminated,
individualismo,
bringing individuality, greed,
morte.
death,
Hoje,
pride.
percebe-se uma
We
parcela da
can
população
see
indígena que
a
nega essa
part of
contaminação.
the
Parcela
indigenous
da nossa
population
está
contaminated with that. It's kind of intrinsic within us. The religious fundamentalism is within our communities.
que trouxeram grandes religiões.
And we're trying to do the same of
Isso significa
big religions of the past century.
imposição
This means a way of imposing violently
ocidental.
a way of living of the Western world
Olhares. Uma
through the looks,
da
a disconnection on the net of life.
acabaram de falar essa interligação que a vida
This
tem com a
connection
natureza.
and the connection of life with nature.
Realidade,
When we change the reflection of authority,
a
we
possibilidade
remove the possibility of an us
sobre nossos corpos,
on our bodies,
dos povos originários,
of the bodies of the originary peoples,
mulheres indígenas,
bodies of indigenous women inhabit the memories, the pains, the voices, the silences of our ancestors that have been exterminated and denied.
também habitam as memórias de
But also, we have the memories of freedom,
de resiliência
the resistance,
de nossas comunidades,
the resilience
das aldeias,
from our communities, the tribes, from the collectiveness.
vinculada.
Because life connected
Ausências nos
to the absences.
chamam,
The absences call us,
nos
question us,
nos alienam,
fight us, divide
nos
us,
sonham, nos
dream us,
acompanham
follow us
toda a nossa trajetória.
throughout our trajectory.
Juntos, agora, compondo nesta mesa,
Now,
com vários líderes,
composing here with many religious leaders,
eu acredito que nós estamos saindo de
I think we have a commitment.
de comprometimento em mudar as regras do jogo.
Committing to change the rules of the game
Regenerativo, com justiça,
to an equitable, regenerative world with social justice. So thank you for this space.
Sabe que no nosso país,
You know, in our country,
nasceu em classe média, classe
those who are middle class or upper class,
mas não enxerga.
we look at the problems, but we don't see it. This is where I come from.
Num lar cristão,
I was born in a Christian home
eram
where
magníficos.
my parents were magnificent.
Olhar profundo
I never ever had a deep look for indigenous peoples before entering URI, the initiative of United Religions, because we have a lot of indigenous leaders. And then I started appreciating the knowledge. Look at her. Look at all she has to teach us. This is out of the protocol, of course, but I will hand you a book from Moema Vieser. She's a reference in Brazil and in many countries. And Marcelo Grondin had a research of 5 years. Moema is an individual member of URI. They had a research of 5 years to write this book as a way of giving its contribution to an indigenous world of Americas. I think a lot of you might not know that the genocide in Americas is the biggest genocide in the world. 70 million indigenous peoples have been killed. So this book is precious. It's deep sadness. It's called Abya. It was the name that America should have been. It's called Genocide, Resistance, and it's written by Ailton Krenak. We read it crying until the last chapter, because in the last chapter, it talks about the resistance and the strength that indigenous people are starting to have. So this really, really provides hope, and we feel like things are going to take another level now. So I want to make this invitation. Well, now I want to pass the floor to our dear Pastor Marcelo Alves from the ministry Caminho da Graça. Good afternoon. Can you hear me well? We have so many beautiful speeches. This is a beautiful panel with a lot of celebrities, and it's tough to continue when we're talking about all the resumes. I took typing lessons. I'm nothing to compare. My name is Marcelo Alves de Almeida. I'm 51. I'm graduated by UFAN in philosophy. I'm also graduated in math, specialist in religious teaching, specialist in gaming for school. I'm married, have a child, and thanks to both my wife and son, I'm closer to the purpose that that God wished for me. I'm more beautiful and more human. Paulo said he fought animals. Those animals were people that are without this humanity that we know. I'm a mentor of the movement Caminho da Graça in Manaus. You might know by the most famous, which is Pastor Caio Fábio. He was from Manaus. He's now in Brasilia. And if there is in this movement Caminho da Graça something that is so expressive, this is related to the environment and preservation. Well, we don't have it. We have some support. Children, we have witch children from Nigeria that are burned there, so we help them. We have help to Rio Grande do Sul during the pandemic. We distributed 30,000 masks, things on that source. But literally, to work with the environment, no. What the group is doing is to work on the look of our members so the members can see the world differently.
In a way, we can preserve the nature in the small acts that every individual has, but not in the macro world. And in this perspective, since time is of the essence, let me be alert to time here. I'd like to talk to you and not being repetitive because many people have already been mentioned things that I will talk. When Yuri invited me, I was like, how am I gonna talk if we don't have the Caminho da Graça movement? It's a Christian secular movement. It's the possibility of following Christ without a religion. And how am I gonna talk about them? And I was like, talk about what Christ would say about environment. And that's a really challenge. First thing is to check the fantastic curriculums. Let's take care of the curriculum of Christ. John ends up saying that if worlds were to be written about Christ, there would be no space on the earth. That's simple because he says that he's the word and the word created the cosmos. And if you catalog the cosmos, it's not possible. That's why it's not possible to write everything he did. Something else, if you take a look at Luther, he said that the book of Hebrews was likely written by Apollo. Many said things about the name of God, and now he is being said about the Son. So he has a supremacy. He's the last word about something. So if Moses said, die, in Moses, he's like, I tell you. He surpasses the perspectives. Another aspect is that Paul, the great apostle, he teaches humility because he says he's the late apostle, the one who used to be a persecutor of the church, but he said that he did more than the apostles. And then he says when he was there in Athens in Acts 17, he recognized that the unknown God is the God he was talking about. He was so open. He would recognize that the same creator has many names in several cultures of the world. And this is a reality maybe for people who are in Amazon is hard to understand. I'm from Goiás. And in my childhood, many years ago, if there's uh, someone young here, maybe before you were born, but during those moments, there would be, we had rain, we had drizzling, and I remember there was this drizzling, and I looked at one side and the other, there was nothing, and I was hit by those little rocks, and that's a really difficult, different culture. 75% of the inhabitants is evangelical, not the evangelicals from today, okay? The evangelicals from decades ago. So in that culture, I saw the manifestation of God and Christ in different people. The more we had people here who travel the whole world and they should know the aspects. That's what something else, it's what Malachi says. He says that daily there are offerings to God in everywhere in the world. So we put a greater vision than the vision that our religious concepts have. And in Amos 9:7, that arrogant Israeli people, they said, didn't I make some people from some Philistines come up? I worked on the Exodus. I am present in all the cultures of the world. They might not have the same name, the same term, but it's the same creator. So it's this Christ that I thought, what would he say about sustainability and environment? If you take a look at the four Gospels, he never used the word the spiritual in the sense of man, a spiritual man. Have you noticed that? I just noticed after someone told me, and I read the four Gospels again. I used to read, I read something and I read again. I am a professor of religious studies, and sometimes I realize that the students are looking at me, but they are over the moon. They're not there. And sometimes we read the same way. We read over and over again. We're not paying attention. We don't dive in a text because Jesus is the Word made flesh. The idea of the proposal of uh, being God, these are not just beautiful words, but it's in the everyday life. Missão Vida, for instance, from Anápolis, a man left on Christmas Day. It's cold. It was cold, like 7 degrees. Your AC won't go to 7 degrees Celsius. And all of a sudden, I was going back home on Christmas Day, and a man said, "Will you give me something? I have my blazer. Do you want it?" Yes. He gave the blazer to the man and he was like, "Thank you, Jesus." And I was like, "My name is not Jesus." No, you did what Jesus would do. That was so profound that he started working with people who are homeless, and we have the program that is called Missão Vida, who take people who are homeless from the street, and this is the proposal that Christ put. So if I want to say that I serve God, I should look to my neighbor, and I should not be like Paul mentioned, men who are like animals, that I should be a mature man to live the reality of the gospel. And then we notice how wonderful it is when Jesus talks about the nature. We have many parables related to the environment, and technology seems to be something apart. 2000 years ago, we had this reality in the world, so any example was linked to that. And we could, with one denarii, was the wage of one day, and it was possible to buy only one sheep because if you have one sheep every day, the reality is different. And in this perspective, when you take care of the Babel Tower, let me build it to reach the sky. They believed that the first clouds would be where God would be. As simple as that, nothing complex. So thinking about this perspective, it seems like things are stopped in the past, but no. Nature became something fundamental for us to understand our current world. Jesus would use here in Manaus, in a Presbyterian church of Brazil, someone came and said, "Could you please mention a modern parable?" And the person said, "A modern parable?" Yes, didn't Jesus do parables with birds, stones, water, so on and so forth? And then the answer was like, well, sin is like the things we see in a forest, the vine. It goes, it comes, and it kills the person. And he said many other things. What would Jesus say in our days? We live an era of disenchantment. I don't know if you have noticed that. Because we have the sadness in life, but when we have disenchantment, I am enchanted by nature. I am enchanted with this forest. It's simply wonderful. And when I talk about enchantment, it's the possibility to solve the social dilemmas that we have. And in Proverbs, we say that up to the 18th century, people would say that the ants wouldn't have their storage, and then where David lived, the Salmon and Solomon. Based on that, This text that used to be a joke was not a joke anymore because it was real. There was an ant that would have storage, and sometimes the seeds would come up. When they were going to take a look at the source, it was like 1 kilometer far. So it says that work is very important. Taking a look at it, what can we learn? What's the enchantment that we learn from our society? For instance, some people need some medicines. It's taken from the poison of one of types of Brazilian snakes. We are enchanted by the internet, but the internet that is exists in the forest among the roots of the forest is wonderful. One corner of the forest communicates the other one when there's danger, and we are all boastful, say, oh, we invented internet and things like that. Another example is we look for smart life, and there was a winner of the Nobel Prize that was observing the bees, and they were like, what is this dance? He won the Nobel Prize because of that, and then he had experiments decoded, and then he wrote his book. These are mathematic equations of communication. It's the only being besides man that works math in an abstract way in nature. What can we learn? And they discuss in a collective ways the solutions. I talked about the ant because the ant is the most successful society that we have. So the only proposal I bring is a reconstruction of our perspective, not only from religious perspective, but in a human perspective, re-enchant with nature and the possibilities, because there were movies that would say, oh, it's in the forest that we will find the cure for cancer. We should not let ourselves go with the sadness of society, but enchant ourselves by nature. That's all I had to say.
Marcelo, realmente a gente tem que se
Thank you,
reencantar,
Dr.
né?
Marcelo. We should to
Agora eu chamo
be
então
enchanted again.
Yuri Lima, nosso colega da
Now
Rede
I
Amazonizar,
call Yuri
para
Lima from the
fazer a
Amazonizar
gente finalizar o
and
nosso
El Nido so that we can finalize our panel.
Você pode ficar? Nildo, pronto. Elis, chega para lá e deixa ele aqui. Pronto.
Let's rearrange here.
Fica aqui. Yuri, você vai.
Alô? Oi.
Já tá.
Oi. Oi, som.
Já vai.
Terminar esse momento, eu gostaria de convidar
Finish this moment, I would like to invite everyone for us to say together one sentence in Nhangatu.
Yandé, Mitima, juntos.
Together.
Yandé, Mitima. Não escutei, vamos lá.
I didn't hear it.
Yandé, Mitima. O que é que significa isso?
What does
Significa
that mean?
nós
That
somos
means we
sementes.
are
Somos
seed.
sementes. Vamos lá, juntos. Nós
We
somos
are
sementes.
seed.
É isso que nós queremos
That's what we
semear ao
want to
longo dessa
sow
manhã e
along
pelo
this
correr.
morning.
Somos sementes de uma
We
experiência
are
de diálogo,
seeds of
de
an
uma
experiment of
experiência de
dialogue, of an
pontes, de
experiment
uma
of
experiência de
bridges, an
águas que se
experiment of
encontram
waters
no
that
Rio Negro sob
encounter
nós, aqui
themselves
no coração da
here in the
Amazônia.
heart of the Amazon.
Eu sou reverendo Yuri Lima, sou clérigo da Igreja Episcopal
I am
Anglicana do
Reverend
Brasil,
Yuri Lima.
e que é parte da Diocese Anglicana da Amazônia, e estou aqui na
I
condição
am in
de
the
coordenador da Rede
condition of
Amazonizar.
be a representative
Eu
of
acabei de
coordinator of the
nascer na
Amazon
beira
is
do
our
Rio
head.
Guamá,
I'm an
na cidade
indigenous.
de
I was
Belém
born
do
by
Pará.
the riverside in Belém do
Claro.
Pará,
Mas eu já estou aqui nesse lado da Amazônia
but I'm
desde
here on
então,
this
desde
side of the
2008.
Occidental Amazon since
Minha formação, eu
2008.
sou professor.
I am
Pós-graduado em
a
filosofia,
professor
ciência da religião e pedagogia, também
in
teólogo,
religious science. I'm also a
especialista na área de ciência da
theologist
religião e educação inclusiva. Também sou
in
assessor pedagógico de diversas
inclusive
organizações
education.
sociais
I'm also
e
a pedagogical
ativista aqui no estado do
consultant
Amazonas.
in indigenous collectives here in the
De
state
maneira
of
muito
Amazonas.
especial,
In
amigo
a really
Márcio, eu estou
special way,
representando
I'm
toda a
representing
caminhada de
here
diálogo interreligioso e
all the
comunitário da Amazônia,
interreligious
que é um
dialogue in
diálogo que não é
Amazon,
estanque, é
which
um
is
diálogo que
a
se
dialogue that is
interconectam
among the
entre os
vines that
parceiros que se
connect
beijam na beira do
about
rio, para
the
que a mata,
elements that are linked in the
a água,
riversides,
se
where the
vejam no
forest, the
coração da
water
floresta.
are
Então,
in the
pensar
heart
em
of
religião, pensar
the
em
forest. So thinking
espiritualidade no
about
coração da
religion and
Amazônia
spirituality in
é
the heart
pensar
of
em
Amazon
conexões
requires in thinking
fecundas que
about
nos tornam sementes
reconnections
uns
that
com os
makes us
outros.
seed
E por isso que
one with
nós,
another.
como
And
rede
that's why
amazônica,
we as Amazon
temos
is our network,
como
we
símbolo de colaboração
integrate
a URI.
a cycle
E
of
concordamos também com
collaboration
as
URI
proposições,
because we agree with the propositions, with the
de
letter
princípios que a URI
of
nos
principles
presenteia
that
e que está
URI
presente em mais de
grants us,
113
and
países
it's present in more
mas o
than
princípio de
113
cooperação
countries, if I'm not
hoje da rede
mistaken.
Amazonizar é a
And
mais
the Amazon is our
jovem,
network is the
mais jovem
youngest
semente da URI
seed
aqui no
in
coração da
Yuri,
Amazônia.
here in the
E por
heart
isso eu
of the
quero uma salva de
Amazon.
palmas
That's
à
why I want
URI
a round of
pelo
applause
momento em que
to
a gente está
Yuri and
vivendo
all the
aqui.
interreligious movement that is here.
Mas eu queria também identificar aqui
I also would
alguns
like
irmãos que
to
começaram aqui em
identify
2008
some brothers
a
who started
caminhada
from
enquanto região metropolitana que se
2008
deu na SOUC de 2018, que começou com atitudes de
and
oração e partilha
started with
vivenciada.
some
A
actions that were
igreja
prayers.
Fraternidade Amigos do Evangelho,
The
nós os
church
anglicanos,
fraternity,
Missionários
Friends of the
Batistas do Brasil,
Gospel,
a igreja
the
a igreja
Anglicans,
evangélica de
the
confissão luterana no
Evangelical
Brasil,
Church,
a Fraternidade
the
Cultural
Lutheran
de São
Protestant
Nicolau, das pessoas
Church, the
ortodoxas aqui
Saint
no Brasil,
Nicolau
também alguns segmentos
community,
católicos a partir do
our
movimento São
Catholic brothers
Nicolau, a
from
Faculdade
some
Católica de
movements, the
Manaus,
Catholic
o serviço
University of
de pacificação,
Manaus,
reflexão e educação
the
SADES,
Service of
a
Reflection
Rede Claim pela
Societies,
Vida, nossos irmãos
the
do movimento
Network for
Francisco
Claim for
Clara, que
Life,
começaram
the
juntos
Francis
conosco.
Clara, our brothers who
Temos
started
também
with
que
us.
parabenizar
I also
e
want to
dizer que
congratulate and
bom
say
que nós temos irmãos
it's
de
good
matriz
that we have
africana, a partir do
brothers
nosso
from
bispo, Padre Alberto
African
Jorge, que tem sido
matrix,
importante
like Father
pedagogo
Alberto Jorge,
nesse
who has
campo
been an
aqui na
important
Amazônia,
voice
onde nos
here in the
prepara muito para as
Amazon, and
reflexões
he has
preciosas
been
de
helping us
educação.
a lot in
Também queremos,
reflections
de
in
maneira muito
education.
especial, dizer que
In
nós
a
somos
really
a
special
primeira
way, we
rede
want
de
to
diálogo
say we're the
interreligioso que,
first
desde a
interreligious
fundação, tem
network that,
contado
since
com apoio
its
efetivo,
establishment, has been counting
afetivo
with an
de mulheres
effective and
indígenas, na
effective
pessoa da nossa querida
support of the
Clarice Tucano,
indigenous
da
women.
Carne,
Our
em que nós
Clarice
lançamos
Tucanos
juntos
here, and we
Mulheres
launched
Cartistas no
together
Combate à
the
Intolerância
first
Religiosa
booklet to
na
find
Amazônia,
religious
conosco,
intolerance
com
in
esse,
Amazon
um canto
with
indígena.
indigenous singing.
E por fim, hoje é Dia
And lastly,
Mundial
today
dos
is
Refugiados.
the Day of the
Todas as
Refugees
espiritualidades
worldwide, all the
que estão
spiritualities
consubstanciadas,
that are
compromissadas com a vida,
committed with
são
life
espiritualidades também que
are
devem ser
spiritualities
acolhedoras da
that should
vida
be
e uma vida sem fronteiras.
embracing
E
life
por
and a
isso que nós, como
borderless
Rede
life.
Amazonizar,
That's why we, as Amazon is our
acolhemos
network,
entre os nossos
we
membros
also receive
anitoriantes da
among
Associação de
our
Venezuelanos e também
members the
refugiados do estado do
Association of
Amazonas, que
people
tem
from
sido uma pessoa que
Venezuela and all the
uma
refugees
pessoa,
in
nós tivemos
Amazon.
um
And
evento de
yesterday we
refugiados,
had an
tem sido um
event,
sinal de vida, de
and it has been
diálogo,
a
de
sign of life
resistência
and
e
dialogue
também de
and
soma nas
resistance
nossas vidas enquanto
and
amazônidas.
things being
Meus
added
irmãos,
to us.
é com
My
isso,
brothers and
com esse
sisters,
jeito, esse cheiro,
this is
essa
with
maneira
this
de ser
way, this
amazônica,
manner
que
of
nós queremos
way
contagiar o
that we
mundo.
want to
O mundo que
spread our
hoje
word
temos a
throughout the
questão das
world.
mudanças climáticas,
The world
precisa
before
mais
the
do que
issues
nunca
related
de nós
to
amazônidas.
um,
Por quê?
they
Porque a
need us
partir de
more than
nós,
ever because
nossa
from
maneira de cuidar
us,
da floresta, nossa
our
maneira de se
way to
conectar
take
com
care of the
amigos e
forest, our
amigas,
way to
a
connect
nossa
with
maneira
brothers and
de dizer
sisters,
para o mundo
our way to
que
tell the
as
world
atitudes de um
that
mundo que
the actions of a word that does not preserve their forest, a word that has an aggressive economy, a word that doesn't take care of our common house should not represent us as human beings or economicals or leaders. And that's why we launched some concrete proposals for the G20 and for this forum. The first proposal that we want to put here is that we have an experience that we had here in the Amazon of booklets and base projects with indigenous communities, with communities of refugees, with schools, with Afro-descendant communities that go throughout all the Amazon, and we want to offer this experience to the G20. It was the booklet to fight religious intolerance. Our dear Clarice helped us, and with other educators. This experience we want to offer to G20 and to this forum. We also want to suggest the dialogues that are going to talk about a regenerative economy, about an ecology that is decolonial, not with a speech from outside, but with a face and the way from us, who are the forest keepers here in the forest, along with the contribution of the several spiritualities that are open to that. We also suggest the implementation of intersectoral collective chambers so that we can have practical experiences of economics, education, and faith community in Amazon and around Brazil. In Latin America, why not? Lastly, we want to say that it's necessary for us to enhance interchange spaces among leaderships, religious leadership, spiritual leaderships, social leadership here in the Amazon and also in the Pan Amazon. And we want this G20 to be this platform of interchange that also works with the human rights of indigenous leadership in Amazon. My brothers and sisters, I want to mention Sister Dorothy. She died because of the forest and the peoples, the original peoples. I want to mention so many environmental activists who were murdered in the Amazon, and they don't even have their names in media. We have a problem, and I want to mention Rodrigo from the Right Center of Religions, the issue to deepen the talk about human rights, ecology, and the protection to the leaderships that are being threatened in Amazon. So, my brothers and sisters, thank you very much for making of this moment a moment of seizing. If you don't know, the seize is a big basket that we connect to very threads, but they carry weights, different weights. So we want to sift, but they can carry great weight. So by coming here today, Salete, we are this sift in the Amazon. We want to carry a great weight, but a responsible weight by life, abundant life, bountiful life in Amazon and for everyone on behalf of every life. Thank you very much. What a great energy, Yuri. Thank you. Uri got richer when you joined them. You are really a barn. Well, finally, some words about Uri. Our dear Elianildo Nascimento. Before the acknowledgements, I would like to thank Rodrigo Vitorino, Catherine, the Rachels, Amanda's, and everybody from CDD, the researchers and students who are structuring this set of gatherings along these days. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And people I encountered today, Father Alberto Jorge, we met 14 years ago, was working for the committee, our state committee of religious freedom, and we are seeing each other again. He's a master, Professor Ricardo Palheta, was a reference for us too. And my friend, maybe he's not, I'm a little blind, I cannot see our friend. I hope it's gonna be our future president of the bar, and he's Anderson Fonseca, founder and president of the Religious Freedom Foundation. We thank you very much. The Bar Association of the Lawyers is always present here and in the field of defending constitutional fields. I am Elisa Nascimento. I am a lawyer. Let me tell you what I've been doing in the interreligious dialogue. I'll have 34 years soon that I'm acting with this interreligious dialogue, but also in the field of defending human rights, fighting religious intolerance, the religious racism, and defending secularism. I saw many people acting here. I effectively participated in the formulation and thinking that was necessary for human rights in this field of human rights and religious diversity, the constitution of state and national committees and its reactivation. It was instinct in 2019, but also enacting all the states where we have the collegiates and we have a joint between the public power and society so that we have policies towards the acknowledgement of the richness of um, religious diversity, but also the rights they have, the rights to the freedom of belief and the defense of the secularism as a state that is not co dominated by the interest of some leaderships or group that try to impose to the state their wills and their visions. Lying. They say they are Christians, but they talk in name of the Christianity, but they are not. They're not representative of this process. And in this fight since 1890, when Brazil institutes the process of secularism, when we separate church and state. We have historical processes that are difficult and contradictory. But in this construction, we also have rights that are worked. So I could also work and I coordinate a committee beyond about beyond the state community. I work a lot with the counselor in the Bar Association since 2011 or 2012 for the Commission of Religious Freedom. We have other actions now. We have the several bar associations that have in acting in this sense and through a process in this and we have the National Forum of Religious Diversity and Secularism and URI itself. We have been working with this, and this is an experimental field. Rodrigo invited me for this discussion here in Brazil, especially URI is involved since its beginning in 2014, I think, Lauren I always forget. Laureen is the last name, right? What's her name? Yeah, that's the name. You said I cannot repeat. Well, among other people, and then we had a questioning in the first meeting in Brasilia, and we were talking about the proposals. Everything that is being said here, they bring two dimensions. And I consider three dimensions, three main dimensions. One is the dimension that the churches, the groups, the initiatives, they can effectively bring suggestions to the states that propose. Not only the states, we have European Union and African Union, they integrate G20, and they have suggestions that are pertinent and applicable to these states when they are absorbed and accepted, and then considering that we also have the principle of the self-determination of peoples and the responsibilities that every state has in working internally, the approval or not of these proposals, and considering these diversities and discrepancies among the involved states, we have fields of actuation that are propositions that are being accepted, and we will have some here. We have another field of proposition that we talk among ourselves, among religious people, among churches, and we also have the ordinary people. So this is one field. Some of the ideas are already being worked, and it's our role to strengthen these. And a third aspect would be something considered from the professor here. So not only Wanda and Professor Lahok, the issue of, do we really hear the voices of the originary people? And how can we be together and respect these communities, their knowledge, their intelligence, their wisdom? And they are 80% of what exists in our biodiversity in the world. They are in territories that have the presence of originary people, indigenous, aborigines, African people, etc., etc., etc. How can we conciliate that without repeating the horrendous processes that are still being affected? We have an example of the killing of the culture in, where is she? Larissa mentioned. This is continuing a process of imposing conversion to indigenous people, the death to their cosmovisions and the spirituality. Who are we to do that? And we still have this kind of actuation this is not related to the freedom of belief and spreading the word of a belief in the Christianity. It doesn't mean that they are killing themselves, and we know about the interests that these processes were manifested in the past. So these are great challenges that we have. Just like it was mentioned, we have some actions in humanization. We had the Anglican bishop involved, and he is instead by UN to organize an event that could have the religious representatives. We had 100 religions or more there. They could celebrate the date, the perspective, And in 5 years of contributions, we had the construction of the URI letter from the year 2000, and I got to know in 1997, and I am bound to up to today. And the interesting in this proposition is that they gave us a democratic way to congregate people from different beliefs, different traditions, and these people together from a collective action. It could be 14 areas: human rights, education, environmental topics, and we have the issue related to developing actions, and we have 1,200 circles of cooperation, 340 circles of cooperation in URI, who are working effectively in environment. So these have been some of the things we've been doing. I have a long list. I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna just give it to Salete because she's gonna indicate two things specifically here in Brazil about actions that we are really engaged, and we have repercussion in COP 19, COP 30, COP 30. I said it wrong. I reminded COVID-19, but it's COP 30 actually. Well, I would like to bring some concerns that are related to URI agenda, but since these processes are still in discussion, I bring here a couple of suggestions. First of all, the establishment of a fund that, well, I don't know, maybe we have our expertise, but maybe something that is directed. We have the European Fund and other mechanisms, but especially for the recovery of environmental order, that would be one of the things. Another thing that was already mentioned here is considering the realities and structures of every country. They could be established, or we could have a directing an establishment of instances in every country that can work the respect to the diversities, including the religious diversity, right? We have here from Saudi Arabia, we have a theocracy from African Union and countries like ours, and they have distinct models of secularity. And as possible, we should recommend these countries. No one has the number that we have here in Brazil. With the census of 1,200 more, we were 147 distinct. So we are really rich. We have the sacred and the diversity, but this should be an example to be worked. A third aspect or suggestion that we might have, um, the issue of control of weapons. There is no way to work peace without we have a perceptive distinction of genocide. We're being worked. Some people are making billions, over $400 billion with wars just in the last year, the last 2 years in wars. Um, Fostering genocide. So the control of weapons and ammunition should be mentioned as ways for the construction of peace. Another aspect is the issue that it's not likely the end of the nuclear weapons, but again, this should be enhanced. We should take a look at the agreements that we had to limit nuclear weapons. So these are points that are also in the agenda of URI that could be worked. A fifth proposition is that from part of these countries, especially the countries who were the colonizers, the base of the imperialism and their richness, the richness of Europe, of the Western, was done with exploration and stealing along the centers, that we might have a process of mitigation and compensation um, for all of those who were explored in this process. So this is a fifth proposal we are bringing. Sixth proposition.
Que vem teremos a COP30 em Belém. COP30. COP30. Cora, como
We
é que nós
have
podemos...
COP30 in Belém. How can we talk about environmental issues if great part of the countries that are part of the 20, they didn't even sign the international conventions about environment? So it's a paradox to talk about these topics, to have these petitions, and the countries that are there, they take for granted and they commit with the agreements that are brought by UN themselves itself. So how to take care of these interests? And last, we have an issue of mine. It's a personal issue. It was not discussed, so I said it. I say it's mine. So enhance international organisms, especially UN. Going to Salete, we saw a situation that is identical to the end of the League of Nations before the end of the Second War. So what is UN for? They didn't even have resolutions. Let's take a look here in the issue of genocide, 68 plus resolutions, and they were not met. How can we give oxygen to this organ so that it won't fall in a sameness and is swallowed by this new perspective, new world perspective, when we discuss many sides to be worked by nation and international organs. I want to turn the time to Salete, but I list some of the actions that URI has that are examples, since we are bringing examples here of what are we doing to work these topics related to environment, and also two main actions that we have been doing and we're actively engaged to repair for, always also preparing for COP30.